Hello and welcome to another video of the Reloadly gift card series. My name is Junaid Maqsood and today it's going to be a very exciting one because we're going to use the information that we've gathered in the last videos and create a transaction for the gift card using the Reloadly's API. So let's get right into it. Currently I'm at the Reloadly's gift card API reference page. So let's check out what information we need to create an actual transaction. So on the sidebar, we can navigate to order gift card. And this is the request that we need to send to create a transaction for the gift card. So the API endpoint is /orders. So based on what the environment you're using, so the base URL will change. So for production, it's giftcards.reloadly.com. For sandbox, it's giftcard-sandbox.reloadly.com. In the request, we have a few parameters that we need to send. Some of them are required and some of them are optional. So let's go through each of them individually to see what they mean. So first of all, we have the custom identifier. This is a unique reference that we've created in our system, and we'll send that in the API in order to avoid duplicate orders for the same transaction. We also have a Boolean to tell if the user wants to pre-order the gift card. If you omit this parameter, it will default to false, so the order will process immediately. Also, for some products, we saw in the previous video that there was an additional requirement required. So the user ID was required for some products. So if you're creating an order for that product, you need to send the user ID here. So you'll get this information from the user and then send it here. We also have the product ID, so the actual product that we're creating the order for, the quantity, how many gift cards we want to order, and the recipient email. This indicates that the recipient email for the gift card purchase. So basically, once the transaction is successful, Reloadly will send an email to this email address if it's sent. If absent, no email will be sent from Reloadly end. So if in case you want to create a white label solution, you'll omit this parameter and then send the email from your end. So we also have the recipient phone details. So this is an object that contains detail of the recipient phone number. So in case we want a second layer of authentication for the recipient that's purchasing the gift card, we have the sender name and the unit price. So the price is basically in the recipient denomination. We saw the various denominations we had on the product level, and we also saw the denomination type. So some products were fixed denomination type and some products were range denomination type. So based on what the product is, you'll get the value for one of these parameter and then send that in unit price. So if it's a range parameter, you'll send a value that is in between minimum and maximum recipient denomination. And if it's a fixed value, then you'll send one of the values in the array for the fixed recipient denomination. So if all parameters are correct, you'll get a response, success response that will give you the amount that this amount indicates the amount that is deducted for the gift card purchase from your Reloadly wallet balance. It will also give you a complete balance info object. So it will tell you what the cost was, what the currency was, what the new balance is for your Reloadly account, what the old balance was, and when this was updated. And we also have the currency codes, is the currency denomination of the user's account, the customer identifier that we sent. So we'll get an acknowledgement for that customer identifier. And if there is any discount applied, it will tell us what the discount was, what the fees was, and if it was pre-ordered or not, and complete details of the product, the recipient details. If you opted to send an SMS, then the SMS fee, and the status of the transaction and total fee, transaction created time, and the transaction ID. So the transaction ID is very important because we'll use this in another API call. So I'll show you that one as well. So we also have the get redeem code. So we can use this request. We can use this endpoint to get the redeem code for that order that we've created. So we'll go through all of these. So I'll firstly switch over Postman, and then we can play with the API on our sandbox environment and see how these transactions will look like. And then we'll switch to the application that we were building and create a basic structure of how things should be organized to create a proper order. And for that one, we'll use the production environment so that I can show you how the actual transaction will look like and what the redeem code will look like and where we can use that redeem code. So let me switch to Postman. So currently I'm in Postman. This is where we left off in the last video. So currently I'm using the sandbox URL. So let's try to fetch the products just to make sure the token is valid. So we can fetch the products. And now in order to create a transaction, I'm going to create duplicate tab just to showcase. And so the endpoint was orders. And then in the body, we need to send a JSON object. And the JSON object, we need to send a custom identifier. This is an option field, but it's very important to include this because in case you are creating a system and that system has its own transaction ID for your own order process, you'll link that order ID with the reloadly transaction. So in that case, you'll know exactly if that order was processed or not, and you'll avoid duplication. And what I mean by avoiding duplication, I'll tell you in a bit. So we'll try to create two transactions with the same custom identifier and see how that goes. So I'm just gonna say ABC1111A just as a random identifier for this transaction. And then we need to tell if it is a pre-order or not. So it's not a pre-order, I want the order right now. Next we have the product ID. So for product, let me just find, sorry, the country code was, let's try to find, so category, we can say product category ID equals to 3. So we have PlayStation Store Canada. Let's do this one. So if we want to create an order for this product, so first of all, the product ID is this. So let's copy and paste that there. Then we have the quantity. So how many gift cards we're ordering. We're ordering only one for now. And then we have the recipient email. Let's just add let's just add this email. And then we have sender name. Let's add John Doe. So basically you'll add your sender name here. So this will be used in case the emails are being sent. It will tell that the sender has sent you this gift card. Then we have the unit price. So this is very important. So the unit price, so we were ordering for this product. So this is a fixed type product. The denomination type is fixed. So we would have a fixed denomination, fixed recipient denomination. So that unit price has to be one of these value. So I'm just going to copy this one, 50, and place an order for that. And because this is the post API, let's switch that and try to send the API request. And there we go. We have a success 200 OK response. And in the response, we're getting the transaction ID and all the details regarding the transaction, the status of the transaction, the details of the product, the details of the account balance. So now the next step would be to get the redeem code. So in order to get that, let me just copy, create a duplicate tab and go back to the documentation. We have this API endpoint. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it here, right? And we need the transaction ID. So we'll copy the transaction ID. So this is the transaction ID from the Reloadly site that we've received for that order. So we'll paste in the transaction ID and send the request. And there we go. We have a response for the card number and the PIN code. So this is basically, as we're on the sandbox environment, it's just returning a sandbox card number, PIN code response. In actual transaction, we'll check that in a bit as well. When we switch to our code editor, we'll have the actual coupon code in the card number, and if there is a requirement for a PIN, we'll have the PIN. And there is also a third parameter, that is the redemption URL. So in case there is a specific activation URL, we'll receive that as well. So another thing that I want to show before we move on to our coding example is that let's try to create this same order again using the same custom identifier. So this is what we get when we try to create the same order using the same custom identifier. The custom identifier provided has already been used. Please provide a new unique custom identifier. And the error code is custom identifier already used. So this is very important. That's why I mentioned, even though the custom identifier is an optional field, we should definitely include that in our production applications, because this is what links the Reloadly's transaction to our system's transaction. So the system that you guys are building, it will link that system's transaction ID to the Reloadly system transaction ID. And that way, because this part maybe in some scenarios, the transaction can take some time to process. So it's a good idea to maybe have some kind of a background job that's running that actually process the transaction, so we can reconfirm if the transaction has been successful or not. And in that scenarios, that background process, just to avoid it being run twice for the same order, so it's very important to include the custom identifier. So this will be an added security level, that if the system is trying to create the same order again, the Reloadly API will reject the request. So now let's switch to the code editor, and I'll also switch to a production environment in the code editor. So I'll add my production keys there, and we'll see an actual transaction come into play. Okay, so now we are back in our code editor. So this is the same project that we were continuing in the last videos. So what I've changed is I've added a new model here for the order. And in that model, we have a function to create an order. So the process is going to be like the user submits the request, and while from the API call, we create an order first on our database so that we can generate a random identifier for that order. And then we send the order to the Reloadly API and then get the response. If it's success, then we will sync the redeem instructions and the coupon code and then show the output to the user. So the create order basically creates the order on our database. So the project is already connected with the Mongo instance. This is the Mongo database that we've created. So this is, if you have not followed along the last videos, I would highly suggest following along so that you know how we configured the database and how we've already synced the brands, categories, countries, and products. So this will create a new collection for the orders, and then in the create order, we just need the product ID and the unit price as the required parameters. For the sender name, we're just going with Reloadly demo. You can add your system's name, or if you're getting the sender name from the user, you can add that based on how your system is configured. For a custom identifier, we're generating a random ID so that it can stay with our order object in our database, and we'll use this to identify the Reloadly transaction as well. For the quantity, if the user has not specified one, we're defaulting to 1. And then based on the product ID, we'll get the product from our database and then make sure that the amount that the user has added matches the denomination type for this product. So if it's a fixed one, it should be within the fixed recipient denominations array. If it's a range one, it should be above minimum recipient denomination and below max recipient denomination. So it has to be within that range. So for the order object, it's all basic values. So whatever we're getting from the API, we're adding here, and by default, the status is draft. So because we're creating the order in our database first, right? So that is how I've created this on the demo project. So first we'll create the order on our database. So this is creating the order in our MongoDB instance. And then we have another function here, which is the submit order. So this will get the order ID, which is the order ID of our database item, and it will submit the payload to the Reloadly API to actually process that order, right? And then based on what the response is, we'll update our object in database with the response items. There's another function that is to sync the redeem code. So again, the same basic structure, and then if the order is successful, then we're making the request to the transaction/cards endpoint to get the redeem code, and then we're syncing the redeem code with our object. So in order to demo this, I've created a API endpoint. So that's a post API endpoint /orders. It's getting some items from the order request body. So we just need to provide the product ID and the unit price, and then we'll create the order. We will submit the order to the Reloadly API, and then we'll sync the redeem code and then show everything back to the user. So let's do npm start and see this in working. Right now, again, I'm on the sandbox environment. So we'll try the process one time via sandbox and see how everything is structured, and then we'll do a live transaction. So now the project is up and running. Let me switch to Postman, and I've already added some values here. So right now, if I go back to our MongoDB instance, there is no collection for the orders and there is no item there. So we're creating a post request to our API. So localhost 3000/API/orders, and we're giving in the product ID and the unit price. So these are the same values that we've sent directly to the Reloadly. Now this time we're sending it in our system. So let's send it. And there we go. We have the success message with all the details. And if we go back to our MongoDB instance and refresh, we now have an orders collection, and in the order we have one item, and that is the gift card product that we've ordered. So we have all the details. We have the customer identifier that was created, we have the status, and then in the product we have the product details. In the redeem code we have the card number, pin code. The redemption URL is null, as this is the sandbox. So everything seems to be have worked properly. So now that we've tested the process with the sandbox environment, I will switch to the production environment. So first of all, I'm going to delete everything from the database so that we can start fresh, because we will need to sync the products and the categories and everything from the production environment this time. So I'll close the app. Let's clear the console. And the way I structured it, we've discussed in previous videos as well. So all the keys are in one place in the env file. So all I need to do is change the client ID, client secret, and the audience and the base URL. So what we can do is go back to the documentation, go on top. So here we have the base URL for the production. Let's copy that. So the base URL is going to be this. The audience is going to be the same as the base URL. So now we're on the production, and we need the client ID and client secret. So if you are following along the series, in the first video we saw where to get the client ID and client secret. Now, as this is the production environment, I'm not going to show the client ID and client secret in the video. So I'm just going to copy the client ID and secret of the video and paste them in the env file, and then I'll resume. Great. So now that I'm back, I've pasted in the client ID and client secret for my production account in the env. So currently the MongoDB cluster is empty. There is no database. So let's just start the application, npm start, and we'll wait for the application to sync up all the categories, countries, brands, and products. So we can see that process in live as well. So we have the reloadly demo database created, and right now we've synced all the brands and the categories and the countries. So let's wait for the products to show up. So now we have the products. Currently it's all syncing still. So let's give it some seconds to sync everything. Great. So now that everything is synced up, we can create the order. So what I want to do is I'll go into the API route, and I want to find a product that I will order. So we have this products API. So let's try that. Localhost 3000/API/products. So this is the API for our system that we're building. So we get a lot of information here, and we know we can filter via the country ISO. So let's do that. So I want to filter for CA, Canada. So these are all the products for Canada, and let's do App Store and iTunes. So let's create an order for this one. So what the information we have is that this is the App Store. We can see the brand logo URL. So this is the Apple App Store and iTunes gift card. And we also have the country flag. So this is for Canada. And we know that this is the range product, and the minimum recipient denomination is 5 and maximum recipient denomination is 143.42, and the recipient country code is CAD. So these are in CAD, Canadian dollar. So let's do this. So I'll go back to the Postman, and this was the API that we were using. This is our system's order creation API. So I'm just going to copy the ID for this product, and then I'm going to say I want to create the gift card for, let's say, $5, right? So that is within the range, so that should work. So let's see. And the order is created successfully. So in the data, we're getting the whole response of what the order is. And if we scroll down, we can also see the redeem code. So we have this pin code and the redemption URL. So let me just copy this redemption URL, and I'll go back to our browser. And let's paste that URL in and see what we get. And we get the complete details that we've received our Apple gift card, and this is the code, and we can go to apple.com/redeem. So let's do that. Also, as this is an Apple code and I'm on MacBook, I can just open the App Store and go to the account, redeem gift card. I've already copied the gift card, so this is the redemption code. So I can paste that in and click redeem. Let me just verify. And there we go, $5 has been added to my Apple account. Now I also want to show you that if we go into our database and go into the orders, let's refresh, we can see that we have the order here. This is our database, and we can see the status, and we also see the redeem code here that was added, and along with the redemption URL. This was fetched using the Reloadly's API, the redeem instructions, and we've saved that on our object before we send it via the API. Great. Now that we've seen how the order process worked and how easy it was using the Reloadly's API to create a gift card order, get the redemption URL and the redemption code, and you also saw how we applied that redemption code to actually redeem the gift card. In the next video, we'll see how the transaction endpoints work and how we can retrieve the old transaction and see all their details. So stay tuned with us. See you in the next one.